week in, week out.
Yeah.
It can't be good for anyone, to be honest.
I do wonder as well whether we put too much emphasis on Højbjerg, whether we think that he's a lot better than he really is. I think he's having to do too much work in defence, because I think Ndembele is great on the ball, not particularly brilliant off the ball. So I think Højbjerg has a lot of work to do. And I think he gets overworked and he ends up making mistakes. He gets tired. He plays a lot of games. Yeah. And so that shielding of the back four isn't really there. When we used to have Dembele and Dyer there, it was a pretty solid double pivot, wasn't it? And we were able to have a lot more. The back four were able to relax a lot more because they knew that they had that cover. And I think that's a key thing in any team. I also think possibly, is Hugo instilling lots of confidence in the back four? I don't know. It's the whole dynamic, isn't it? It's not just your four defenders, it's your goalkeeper, it's your defensive midfield area.
Yeah, I think it works both ways, doesn't it? The goalkeeper will gain confidence from that solidity in front of him, and vice versa. The more solid they are in front of him, the better your keeper's going to be. We've got to consider a replacement for Hugo at some time in the future, probably in the next 12 months. He's. I don't think you could really fault him on either of the goals yesterday. No. They're both well taken and well crafted by Newcastle. Left us, wide open. Certainly the first one, and the second one just pinging across the goal area.
Just basic defensive errors really led to both of their goals.
Yeah, but how many times have we said that this season? That's the problem, really. So many defensive errors.
And last season, the season before that, the 10 years before that, the 10 years before that. It's just a constant. It's just a constant cycle that never really seems to change, does it? It's just incredibly frustrating. But
mind you, I think this happens at most clubs. Most clubs go through this, don't they? Chopping and changes of managers, and unless you're really successful and you have a manager for 4 or 5 years, this is what happens.
But clubs don't have that patience anymore, do they? It's a results-focused business, and clubs don't have the patience to remain static for 2 or 3 years to make. Well, Liverpool did that, didn't they, with Klopp?
They did. They supported him. Yeah.
Yeah, they supported him, but they were never in danger of being relegated, were they? But obviously, the owners there had that patience to be able to do that. But
he was finishing 8th and he was finishing 6th, but mainly because his defence was awful. It wasn't until they sorted that out.
But that's the thing. Now they won the league last season, and now they're worse than us, which is just a remarkable turnaround.
But their defence is not the same defence, so you can almost draw parallels with what's happening with us and what's happening with them.
You can't build a house without the right foundation.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all built on the sand. Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah. So. My takeaway from the game, though, was essentially Newcastle were really up for it. We just faded. As the game went on, we just faded and we let them play. And they were cutting through the middle of us and down the sides. They were just hitting us from all angles. And it was inevitable they were going to score. It was inevitable.
Yeah, we were talking about Vinny and why he made that substitution at half-time. I can only put that down to the fact that he wanted to try to shore up the midfield and take a little bit more control of the midfield, but that failed miserably.
Yeah.
Harry found himself dropping further and further back, trying to make a difference in the midfield.
Yeah.
And we were again in this situation of being a goal ahead and not really looking as if we were going to score again. Although, Harry hit the post. Yeah, we had a chance prior to that where we went through one-on-one with the keeper, didn't really get it out from under his feet. So it could, again, have been a very different game.
It could. Tanganga had the header. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, you're quite right.
it wasn't to be. And I think when things are going badly for you, you may not get the run of the ball.
Yeah.
But that, I still think there's something seriously wrong in that side. I mean, loads of rumours and nobody knows what the story is, but what was going on with Aurier and Toby.
Yeah.
Having seen them training, and then for Jose to come out and say, oh, yeah, but they didn't arrive back in time to have their COVID test. Well, if that was the case, why the hell were they training with the rest of the team?
And
what's going on?
I heard today that apparently Toby had his COVID test on the Wednesday because they were back after the Tuesday, or was it the Monday game that Belgium had? So they were back on the Tuesday, so he could have the COVID test on the Wednesday. So, yeah, some really weird stuff coming out of Mourinho. I've never really been Mourinho out, but you have to start questioning what's going on there. I mean, what is the guy doing?
Yeah,
is he just starting to light his fires again so that he can try and cover his own arse while everything falls around him? And
yeah, I mean, I've just got sort of a couple of notes here about that we wanted to touch on, which I suppose leads on from the Newcastle game. I've got here, what the fuck was the Alderweireld comment about by Jose? Question mark, what the fuck? And who is to blame? Is it ENIC? Is it Jose? Is it the players? And I said at the start of this podcast, didn't I? My head's all over the place at the moment. I don't know who's at fault. I don't know who's at blame. But obviously, we've got ENIC that obviously sit behind us. They're in charge of the recruitment, blah blah blah, etc.
Yeah.
I said on the pod a few weeks ago, we seem to have aspirations to shop in Fortnum and Mason, for example. But if we see a similar product in Lidl, it looks the same, it feels the same, then we'll go for it. We'll pay the fee, and it never sort of pays off. And then you've got Jose. Again, the Alderweireld comment was just absolutely just off the fucking scale. I mean, there's pictures of Alderweireld training with the team on Friday. I mean, where he scraped that excuse out from, I've got no idea. I mean, that sort of thing will obviously filter back to the players, and the players, we've all got WhatsApp groups. They must get away from, must have got off the train, or they were on the train on the way home yesterday, texting each other, going, "What the fuck is he on about?" It's just
it's interesting though that
nuts.
you bring that up, because he also made another comment when he was interviewed. He was asked why this team doesn't defend as well as previous teams, and he said it's the same coach, different players. So obviously, however you want to translate that, to me, it obviously means he's blaming the players aren't good enough. Yeah, and that to me is a really weird thing to do. So for me, that was the comment that really struck me. I thought, why are you saying that? That you're asking for trouble saying that, aren't you?
But I suppose stripping that back, a very simple directional comment for a manager to make will be, don't fuck things up under pressure. And they're doing it consistently.
Oh, they are. I'm not saying he's wrong. Yeah. I just think it was really odd for him to say it like that, because he literally is throwing his players under the bus. Not a player, but his players under the bus, saying that he's fine. As a coach, he's fine, but his players aren't good enough. And for me, that's just kind of weird.
He's never one to stand up and take responsibility for his decisions and his actions.
Unless he wins, of course.
Yeah, that's different. That's all down to him. He's I'm sure there's a story about Toby that will come out to explain some of the chat that Mourinho had about him post-match that didn't add up. There is a story there.
Yeah, but right.
What annoys me is the fact that, we've now, I think, it's something like 9 games that we've lost from a winning position.
Yeah.
Somebody said, we'd come up with a stat to say you realise if games had finished at half time, we'd be second in the table.
Mm.
And that really puts it into perspective. So there's something quite clearly wrong. Now, is that the coaching staff being overly cautious when in the lead and not going to bury teams? Or is it the players? Now, to me, it can only be one person. It can't be every single player who's played in every single one of those games where we've lost a lead or failed to protect a lead.
Yeah.
It's got to be from the coaching staff and the mentality that the coaching staff instill.
That's the thing. When we actually sit back and defend, and everyone's thinking, what the fuck are we doing here? You never see Jose on the side of the pitch shouting at his players to get out of their box and to push forward, get into the opposition half. He's always just sort of sat there with his
I have seen him do that. I have seen him do that on occasion in some games this season.
On occasion, but yeah, he will often sit there for 10, 15, 20 minutes just watching us soak up play.
Yeah.
And, the best form of defence, it's a cliche, isn't it? The best form of defence is attack. And, I can't remember what the game was when we just sort of sat there and we soaked it all up. And he came out after the game and said, I didn't tell my players to sit back. I told them to attack, which follows on from, the Sissoko comment as well. Was it after the Fulham game? Where he said, we should have been 3 or 4-0 up, but we just decided to sit back. I don't remember the exact quote, but it's just all really... It's all really odd. 11 players can't, as Andy said, collectively decide on the spur of a moment. They're not all lemmings.
Pete said, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Pete, yeah.
Yeah, but the... I mean, for me, there's kind of two sides to the story as well, isn't there? Because you've got the players not performing very well. Now, is that because they're not good enough for what he wants them to do? Or is it that he's not good enough as a coach because he doesn't have the ability to coach them? Or is it because they're just not good enough for him to coach? In other words, does he need elite players? Does he need, £100 million players or whatever they cost to get them to do what he wants?
I think there's some truth in that. If you actually look at the players over the past 18 months, how many of them can you say have improved from what you've seen? I think you'd make a good case that he's in getting Harry to be more adaptive in central midfield and defensive and creating. You could say he's a better player. And to be fair to Mourinho, he did say, stick with me, Harry, I'll make you a better player. So I think he's done that. Sonny, possibly. We've seen what he's been able to do in the past. He's probably done it more consistently this season.
Yeah, I would say so.
Although he looked really rusty the other day, and I'm not surprised, first going back after a while.
Yeah.
But other than that, could you put your hand on your heart and say that he's improved any of the other squad players?
Well, strangely, I think he's improved Aurier. I think he's done a better job with Aurier, although Aurier still has a clanger in him.
Yeah.
Ndombele, I think he has turned him round a bit.
Yeah. Fair play. Yeah.
But there have been some players that have just really gone backwards. So you look at Sissoko. I know he's not the greatest person on the ball, but he's just. It's almost like you can't play Sissoko at the moment. He's. I don't know why, but he just doesn't seem to be. He just doesn't seem to fit into the side.
No.
You mentioned about Jose. Is he not a good enough coach? Well, allegedly, Alex Ferguson never really took any training ground coaching sessions. It was left to the likes of Phelan and the coaching staff. And Ferguson
that's right.
apparently sort of dropped in and out here and there.
Yeah.
Is it the coaching staff? Are they not good enough?
Well, maybe. Yeah. I mean, managers quite often don't coach, do they? And Jose has said that he coaches the team, not individuals, which is an interesting statement based on what we've just been discussing about Kane and what have you.
Yeah.
But you would imagine that a manager these days doesn't have the time to to do individual coaching that often, but yeah, it's hard to say, isn't it? We just don't know what goes